Good morning and welcome to another live stream. Alright, throw the first chat message out there. I'm going to stall for a couple minutes to make sure everybody has a chance to join in. And then we will get started with the actual program for today. And get this, I actually have a plan. I'm not flying by the seat of my pants this week. So this should be a little bit different. I will have some things to go over. I will have some announcements. This should be a little bit different, and hopefully going forward it'll be a little more predictable for everybody. That's kind of my plan. But more about that later. So today we're talking mainly about a few things. So we're going to switch over to there we go, my schedule. So I thought I'd mention a few things today to start off the stream, and just say, it's been a crazy week at work. We've been prepping for the rollout of a new library management system, and the staff training for that happens on Tuesday. So my goal for today is not only to get this live stream out of the way, but to get the second part of the Calibri video series recorded and hopefully mostly edited, and perhaps even scheduled for release for Thursday, because I know the first half of the week is going to be just crazy, and I'm probably going to be doing some on-call work, just to keep things moving forward as smoothly as possible with this rollout. So the other thing at work that has been happening, and I've actually been in a waiting pattern on it for the better part of a month. We're also rolling out a new antivirus, and I should be getting the information to start setting that up this week. So I will likely be having to make some changes to all of the computer systems in the building. I'm hoping most of it will be this week, but realistically it's probably going to go into the following week. So that's a little bit of what's been going on in my little world, and it's hopefully going to slow down a little bit after that, so that I can have some breathing room. Good morning, David. I'm doing well. Hopefully all is well for you out in your neck of the woods. So all right, we are at 11:03. And see if I talk faster than I need to today. Okay, so I'll stall a little bit, and I'll mention a few pieces of news. This is mostly Linux related, but there's been a new release of the Steam client for Linux. They are touting compatibility with NixOS, which I'm not really familiar with. Support for SDL, which is a simple direct media layer, new version of that library, and support for NVIDIA proprietary video drivers. I'm assuming the newest versions of those that are available on Linux. KDE Frameworks 5.86 has also been released, which improves Plasma on Wayland for specifically NVIDIA CPUs. and there were over 200 total changes for that. And let's just dump that link in the chat just for the sake of argument if anybody is interested in viewing that later on. On the GNOME side of things, version 41 has a new release candidate that's out. So GNOME 41 builds on 40, of course, and this I would anticipate this next series of releases being more about refining existing features rather than adding big changes. So that's kind of interesting. System 76, they are a computer manufacturer that's really quite interesting. Let's see. They have, let's see if I can share my screen. They have their own line of computers out, and what separates them from an HP or a Dell is that they are building these in a fashion that is Linux centric. So the options for their computers are all Pop! OS, which is the operating system that they build. It's a derivative. I won't say it's a fork, but it's a derivative of Ubuntu. And the news this week is that this Pangolin 15-inch laptop, it is now available with the, what was it? I thought it was the 5800. No, the 5700U Ryzen processor. So, and the price is pretty competitive there. It's not a bad price for a starting base model. That is for a 15-inch. You can get higher end machines. You go into the higher, especially if you go to a 17-inch, you end up with an Intel CPU. But they've also got this, of course, is not available. They've got a 15-inch workstation level machine that is pretty interesting as well. But yeah, so this has been updated to the newer version of the Ryzen 7 series. And, this is pretty attractive. Up to 64 gigs of RAM, up to 2 terabytes of NVMe, Radeon graphics, which isn't bad. That would support gaming in Steam and whatnot. And I guess you can click on design and buy. We can see what the base configuration is. So you have the option of Pop! OS or Ubuntu. So the 5700U is a $200 processor upgrade option, but it does take you from 6 cores, 12 threads, up to 8 cores, 16 threads. And for $200, if you plan on keeping a laptop for a number of years, then that might be worth it. So, when it comes to memory, they do the same thing a lot of other manufacturers do, and by default, they only give you one SODIMM, so you're running single channel, and as a lot of people will tell you, Ryzen runs better when you are running dual channel. So you would likely want to upgrade to at least the 16 gig option. I view 16 gigs as sort of the minimum RAM for a new machine on an x86 platform. And then your standard storage option is 240 gig NVMe. And you know, it's one of those things where check the pricing. If you can get NVMe drives cheaper somewhere else, order with the base model and do the clone yourself. But this is pretty slick. So they've also got their own keyboard, which will be shipping next month. Keyboard's not for the faint of heart. It is a $285 keyboard, but it gives you more customizability options than most of your other competing keyboards, really at almost any price range. And then of course you can get a laptop bag, warranty, and shipping coverage. So the price for the options I would want would be $1,500, which that's actually about $25 more than I paid for my Mac Mini. Now, you know, they've got some interesting things available as well. You know, they've got a mini PC based on, I believe that's based on the Intel NUC design. You know, they've got their custom branding on the top lid. And, you know, there are a lot of people that this would be a great option for. And, you know, if you're not looking to push things, then hey, you know, that's an option. You know, starting at $599, it's not a bad way to go, especially if you're in dire need of a computer. So, okay, so that's it for System 76. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Let me jump back to this. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to mention as the news is that there were some new distros released, and this is just the highlights from DistroWatch. Hunix 16 was released, Tails 4.22, Phoenix 123, Laka 3.4, and MX Linux 21 Beta 2. So let's just take a look at MX Linux. And this is kind of an interesting one because this is available in multiple desktops. XFCE, KDE Plasma, and Fluxbox, which is ultra lightweight. And, you know, this could be interesting for people. So, you know, they do a pretty good job with changes that are coming. And yeah, it's worth a look. Worth a look. Maybe not the distribution for everybody, but is definitely worth a look. So here's some screenshots. There's a classic Fluxbox desktop. So, all right. So we made it through the news. So my big announcement, and I've alluded to this a little bit in previous live streams. Let's remove that. So the big announcement that I want to make today is that at least temporarily, I am moving to a schedule of every 2 weeks for the Sunday live stream. Or, excuse me, every other week. So the next live stream will be 2 weeks from today. And I'm going to do this at least through the end of October because of the craziness I've got going on at work. And yeah, I just want a little bit of a break. Starting in November, I will be reevaluating if going back to weekly makes sense for the Sunday stream, or if I will alternate weeks and do 1 week on Sunday and the other week on Thursday evenings, as I have done some Thursday evening streams in the past. And, see what makes sense going forward, since we're supposed to be moving into some more comfortable weather. It might be just a little bit more advantageous to keep going on a weekly thing, but switching the days back and forth, Thursday evening and Sunday mornings. So as this transpires, as this evolves and becomes a little bit more solidified, I will be making announcements on the channel page. So hopefully I won't shoot myself in the foot and lose people that are regulars for the Sunday morning stream by moving to this new schedule. But my hope is that I can get more people involved in the streams, and I'm finding that Sunday morning I am thankful for the diehards that come out nearly every week, but I'm not reaching the larger part of my audience doing this. So I want to play with the idea a little bit and see what I can change up a bit to do that. So that's my big announcement. Hopefully it won't be too huge a change for anybody, and everybody will be happy with it going forward. So I guess the other part of the announcement is that with this change, I will be having some freed up time excuse me, to work on getting a cache of footage recorded for upcoming videos, and so that I can get back on that weekly release schedule that I was once on, and hopefully that will trigger some additional growth in the channel. So, all right. So the next part of this live stream today, I wanted to talk about Raspberry Pi boards. And I find it interesting, the number of people that openly say that they like the Raspberry Pi, but I would, they say I would never run one in a production environment. And if they're talking about the traditional $35 all-in-one board, I'm in agreement. if you don't take precautions to protect the micro SD card, if you don't back up your micro SD card on a regular basis, you are asking for an eventual failure. Excuse me. Now, with that being said, there is also the Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4. And just for the sake of argument, Adafruit. I'm going to bring back my screen. So Adafruit is one of the largest distributors, resellers, whatever you want to call them, of Raspberry Pi gear in the U.S. I believe they're in the U.S. Let's see. But what I wanted to get at with this, and of course they're showing these compute modules being out of stock. They are showing in stock at Amazon, and I'm hoping to build out some links later, and I'll get added to the description after the video is over. But the compute module, you can get this with or without Wi-Fi. You can get it with various levels of RAM, and I believe they've got an 8 gig model as well. I'm not seeing it here. But you can also get it with some eMMC on board, which means you don't have to worry about the micro SD card. And so that's a standard feature on some of these models. So for $45, you could get the board with 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs MMC, or $65 will get you 4 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of eMMC, which that's plenty of RAM to install Raspberry Pi OS on, especially if you're using the light version. But then, what do you need to make this into a full machine? Well, that's where what they call carrier boards come into play. And you've probably heard, excuse me, probably heard of a guy by the name of Jeff Geerling. And he has been tracking these various carrier boards. And some of them are quite interesting. So if we scroll down through this, let's blow this up full screen and maybe make this a little bit larger. Oops. Make this a little bit larger. So, they've got, well, that's not quite the page. There, this is the page I wanted to send everybody. Put that one in the chat. Okay, so you've got different carrier boards for the Compute Module 4. For instance, this guy right here uses the standard ATX power supply. But you need an additional I/O board and different things of that nature. And there are just some pretty amazing boards that are available. This one supports an NVMe SSD. M.2 NVMe SSD. And it still gives you the 1 gig Ethernet, the micro SD card slot, and Yeah, that opens up some options. You still have access to the GPIO pins. The one that I'm most interested in, uh, and I'll probably get one of these carrier boards just to get myself by for a little while because I do plan on ordering a compute module for. They have an industrial cluster set up, but the one that has piqued my interest the most is somewhere. Let's see. Um, excuse me. Let's see. Maybe. It is further down. Um, they've got a couple of these. This one, and this one. So, you've got the scale node server baseboard for the compute module 4. Optimized for 19-inch rack mount installation for distributed multi-node computing systems. Includes a power over Ethernet circuit, has an M.2 M key slot for NVMe SSDs, and fits inside a 1U chassis. So that one is very interesting. The next one that I found interesting, and this is still in the prototype phase, but again, you've got your compute module 4, you've got gigabit Ethernet, you've got NVMe SSD. I believe this one has a real-time clock. And it says, for their description, in just one rack unit, up to 16 devices. Each has its own NVMe disk, 1 gig Ethernet with PoE support, micro HDMI, and USB-C ports, up to 128 gigs of RAM, 64 ARM Cortex-A72 CPU cores, and 32 terabytes of storage. And again, that's if you have 16 of these in your one rack unit of space. So this is the one that has caught my eye the most. And their website last night was not working so well. Let's see if that loads up today. It's not looking that great. So let's open GitHub and see. So yeah, this is their little enclosure to put these guys in the one rack U unit. And of course, this is all prototype, pre-manufacturing drawings and renderings, whatnot. But there are some pretty interesting things coming. Uplab.pro does not seem to be and that shouldn't make a difference, but sometimes it does. They don't seem to be working so well today. But if they're board is available at a good price, and this rack enclosure is available at a good price. Hopefully it's got some fans in the back. This could be a very attractive piece of kit to have around. So, there are, of course, other boards. They got some with touch screens. There's some that have more than one compute module for. and it's got an integrated gigabit switch. There's a TV stick with an HDMI port to plug directly into your TV. Just all kinds of interesting things. A NAS box. This Pi Box 2 Mini, powered by Raspberry Pi 4 compute module. An ultra modular 2 or 5 bay NAS. Storage solution for the Raspberry Pi compute module 4. Supports SATA drives and includes HDMI and gigabit Ethernet. So that could be interesting. That does look like a Noctua fan inside there. It's the right color. But yeah, this has got me excited again about the Raspberry Pi. They've even got one that's in the format of a Nintendo Switch. And you can put something like Retro Pi on it and play all the old classic arcade games and console games and old computer games from the 80s and 90s. So that is pretty interesting as well. Especially depending on the size of this LCD screen they put in there. So let's take a look at chat. Thank you, David, for keeping me company today. Yesterday was a tough day with 9/11. I can understand that. I ended up having to work yesterday. It's the first Saturday the library was open for the fall. And yeah, that brought back some memories from 20 years ago and having to go into work on the day after seeing the initial impact on the first tower. My Sunday streams will line up with yours for a while. That's not a bad thing necessarily. I have a similar challenges with my day job and YouTube content. Yes. So, I just want to make clear for anybody watching this after the fact, I am not in any way abandoning YouTube. But I need a little bit of a break from the weekly Sunday schedule. I've been doing this every Sunday for nearly a year, and I think I've only missed 2 in that time. So it's time for a little breather, regroup and come at it with some new energy. If come November I do decide to go back to a weekly schedule, or that might wait until after the beginning of 2022. I will make that announcement end of October, beginning of November timeframe, and just keep everybody updated as I go forward. So, all right. The next segment of the live stream, I'm really trying to get to a little bit more planned layout for this. So in this segment, and basically what I'm doing is I'm doing 2 Linux segments, and I'm doing a combined Mac and Windows segment in between. So for this segment, there were a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. VMware has announced this past week that there is a preview of VMware Fusion for M1 Macs. We are also now less than a month away from the release of Windows 11. And Apple has an event on Tuesday the 14th, which is the day I'm stuck in training all day for the new library system. And this Apple event is going to be for the iPhone launches. There is allegedly an as yet unscheduled event that will take place in October for the launch of new iPads and the MacBook Pros, which will be using the M1X chip, and that, or at least that's the information that's available at the moment. And so that will be interesting to see. And go forward from there. Seems like there was one other thing I was going to mention, but I don't have it on my list here. So, let's see. I did want to ask for your opinion on a Micro Center video I will be filming next Friday. By coincidence, I was going to include the section of the store where they sell the Raspberry Pis. Oh, that's awesome. I've only been in a Micro Center once, and I was far more interested in all of the accessories and options that they had for the Raspberry Pi than I really was in the PC hardware. In all honesty, because there aren't that many places that, as far as brick and mortar stores, that carry Raspberry Pi stuff. Now, it seems like you can possibly find them at Target. I haven't been into a Target in more than a year, probably since pre-pandemic times. But I wouldn't be surprised, since Target's a little more upscale than a Walmart, generally speaking, if they did carry something like that. Now, I think both Target and Walmart carry them in their online stores. I'm pretty sure Best Buy carries it on their website. And of course, Amazon is everybody's go-to place for a lot of things. So, yes, if it means more Raspberry Pi coverage in the U.S., I'm all for it. Video will be done with the help of the store manager and a couple of employees. I will include the 3D printer section. They will be running all their display models. Awesome. So speaking of 3D printers, just as an aside, Jeff Geerling did have a video, and it may be a few weeks old now, but there was a company that was doing a Raspberry Pi compute module for carrier board that was specifically built to be the control board for a 3D printer. And I thought that was an amazing idea, because a lot of people will add a Raspberry Pi into their 3D printer setup anyways, whether it's to run a camera to watch the print as it's going along or for some other reason. But I'm kind of interested to see what happens with that carrier board and when it comes available. So I'll start with the build your own department. Awesome. I'll be buying a 3D printer for my videos and projects before the end of the year. Well, see, now I would have thought that with your engineering background that you would be building your own 3D printer and sourcing the parts to make that happen rather than buying one. But I understand the time sink that something like that would take, and I can completely understand why you wouldn't necessarily want to do that for your first 3D printer. But I would be interested if down the road at some point, if you didn't build a custom 3D printer based on and perhaps improving on a freely available design that is floating around the internet somewhere. Because I know there are multiple designs out there that have parts lists and everything like that, but it'd be time consuming, but it'd be very enjoyable to build something like that custom based on a Raspberry Pi compute module board. Well, maybe it's a big job, but you know, maybe when one of your grandkids gets a little older, you'll enlist them to help with that. That could be a fun project. I need to make some small parts for build mods. Nice. Maybe something like that with the 3D printer in the future. Very cool. So, all right, that seems like a good place to switch over to the second Linux segment. Keeping with the idea that my channel is primarily about Linux, and people seem to gravitate towards the virtualization stuff that I do. So I'm logged into my Proxmox server right now, and I wanted to bring up some of the command line utilities that come with this system and how these can be used. And so they've got a good number of commands built in. PVE performance will spit back the speed of your server that you're running Proxmox on. CPU and BOGO MIPS, the regular expressions per second, hard drive size, file syncs per second, and access to internal and external DNS in milliseconds. So that's interesting if you're running a little bit of benchmarking. But then they break things down into two other commands. You've got the QM command, which is for the standard virtual machines, and you've got the PCT command, which is for containers. So we'll start off and we'll run through a few of the QM commands. So if you're logged in and you want to list the VMs, you simply type QM list, and it will spit back the list of VMs with their status, the amount of RAM that's assigned to them, and the size of the boot disk. And if they're running, the process ID. If you wanted to see how much memory just one specific machine had and you didn't want to list them all to find this out, you could say QM config. We're going to pick on the Windows 11 machine. We'll say it wants the virtual machine ID, so 100. And then we're going to pipe that into grep and use the caret and memory. So it will search for memory and it reports it back as 8192, which is the same we had up here. So you can also clone a virtual machine from the command line, and that would be a matter of just typing in qm clone and the ID for the original. So in this case I did this earlier and I did 300, which is my Open Media Vault 6 test machine, and I made the clone 333. I'm not going to run that again because that one was a little time consuming. You could also get the cloud init config, and so you would say qm cloud init dump. You need the VM ID, so we'll pick on Windows 11 again, 100, and then the type, and we'll say meta, and that should, in this case, it spits back the instance ID. You've also got the option of doing network, and it tells you some information about the network, and then user. And it's able to report back that the password is not set to expire, and users are default. So it doesn't give you actual usernames. That would be a little scary if it did, because if your Proxmox server got compromised and you knew the system, then you could get a lot of information about a company's VMs that way. We'll bring up our list of VMs again. Alright, you can also pull the full VM configuration, and you can just do that with qm config and then the VM ID, and it will tell you what that is. This one is not running, so this was a machine I spun up to try to test out Jellyfin media server. I did not get all the way through that config, but that was all right. Let's see, snapshots. You can list snapshots. qm list 100. I think I copied that down incorrectly. What's that? qm snapshot. Okay, so I copied that one down wrong. So let me mark that in my notes that it's incorrect. Okay. It also has the ability to import OVF virtual machines from the OVF manifest. And you do that by saying qm import OVF. If I could type today, you'd have to give it a give the VM ID you want it to be. You'd have to specify the manifest and the storage. I have not played with that command yet, but that did pique my interest when I was going through and prepping for this. You can also start, stop, and suspend a VM from the command line, and again you would use qm start, stop, suspend, and then the virtual machine ID. So I actually find these commands to be a little bit more straightforward than what the VirtualBox team makes available. But you know, this is I'm just scratching the tip of the iceberg with this. And you know, it's something that once I have a little bit of a grasp on the command lines directly, then I could think about doing this with Ansible and being able to spin up multiple virtual machines or start various virtual machines for different lab work, and just, you know, automate the process to a degree that I can't, well, I won't say I can't do right now, but it would be more time consuming for me to do it that way right now than it would be to just launch stuff from the web interface. So that covers the VM part of it, and the on the container side, it's very similar. Of course, it's the PCT command instead, but you can do list, and it will tell you which containers you've got. You can clone, and it would just be PCT clone 119, 319, and it would do its thing there. As you can see, I did clone 119 earlier, and I made it 219, and so there are two copies of this Unbound 1 DNS container, and I have that stopped at the moment. If you wanted to delete a container, you would say PCT destroy and specify the ID number. And we'll just destroy 219 because that's the reason I cloned it in the first place. So let's see. PCT start 119 should kick off that container, which is usually running by default, and that did start up. You can check the disk usage of the container. PCT df 119, and that's using 543.9 megabytes out of 30 gigabytes. So obviously I have some work to do on sizing of containers. I could have easily given this, you know, 8 gigs of storage space and still been way over what I needed. But yeah, there are some pretty interesting things you can do here as well. Similar to what you can do with Docker. So if I type PCT console 119, it puts me in that container. And so I can do a list of the processes running on that machine. Um, the trick is I didn't write myself down instructions on how to get out of that. Um, um, if I shut it down, I'm assuming it'll kick me out. Yes. There's always a way. Okay, so that you can also do PCT config, which will give you the configuration of the specified container. See if they have a man page for this. So I want to find out, because I didn't put it in my instructions. There should be somewhere, and I'm probably not going to see it right off. There should be an option to list the snapshots that a given container has. And I see delete snapshot. I swear I saw something to list snapshots. List snapshot. Oh. Try that. Okay, so if we do list, so it tells you this only has the current config. It does not have any actual snapshots. 119 might. Yes, after November 2020 update. So I probably need to run a new snapshot because that's horribly out of date. Approaching a year out of date. So again, that's just used for lab purposes, so I don't worry about that too much, especially since it's not accessible from the internet. So yes, so man pages, so man PCT, which I had open a little while ago, and man, what's the other one? Oops. Man QM has that list available as well. And then if we went over here, I must have closed that. They also have great documentation. And this is just two sections of it. and it's basically the man files, but it's formatted a little bit nicer for the in HTML. So there's this one here as well. So yes, there are man pages. There's also some good documentation out there for let's see, in their wiki. So the current docs for the whole thing, I'll dump this in chat as well, but they've got it available in PDF. There's also an EPUB version if you want to dump it on your Kindle for the whole thing, and then you can get individual chapters if you just wanted to study the firewall portion, for instance. And then they've got web versions of the man pages for different things as well. So, and they've got this, their API viewer. If you wanted to do this a little bit more programmatically, you could do that as well with get and put options from just doing standard HTML stuff. So that could be of interest as well. They have, I've been very impressed with their documentation. I will say that. Very impressed with their documentation. I wish they had a little bit more mind share and market share in the U.S. The alternatives out there. Now, I haven't been a customer of VMware in a number of years for my own personal use, but the last time I was, and this has been years ago, the documentation VMware had was not as in-depth as this. And maybe that was because I didn't have an enterprise level package from VMware. But this is very interesting to me, and something that, I'm using Proxmox on a pretty regular basis for things. I do try to keep this thing updated as much as possible, and I guess I'm a little bit behind on some updates. And there's firmware and a kernel update. I should probably run those. But the one product that would potentially make me consider moving away from Proxmox somewhere down the line, or at least running this new system in parallel for a while, is TrueNAS Scale. And this just entered beta. TrueNAS Scale, of course, TrueNAS is a network attached storage built on BSD. TrueNAS Scale is trying to put everything, including the kitchen sink, into a sister system built on the Linux kernel. So this has, the re-implemented TrueNAS core built on Linux, and Scale adds Linux containers, KVM, and scale-out ZFS capabilities, or ZFS for people across the pond that might be listening later. So this to me has the potential to dethrone my love of Proxmox. I probably won't completely migrate to it until it hits a 2.0 version, but I will definitely start testing once it comes out of beta, and I might dedicate a machine while it's in beta to some testing. So this has some pretty big potential to me. In a future video series, I was planning on building an application server. Proxmox may be the way to go other than VMware. Yeah. So, Proxmox has been rock solid for me. So the server that I've got running, my little 1U server that's 10 plus, well, probably between 12 and 15 years old. I've had it since 2013. That machine has been rock solid, running since June of 2020. It was when the last time I reinstalled Proxmox. And I did an in-place upgrade from 6.4 to 7.0, and that went smoothly. And the only reason I've been considering rebuilding lately is to put solid-state drives in there instead of spinning rust. So in Proxmox, there is not a Samba AD module by default. That is something you could install. But again, it would take you going to the command line and, just doing apt install Samba and various other packages that are needed to implement that. And it would not be exposed in the graphical interface, but it's something that you could do, or you could run the Samba AD in a VM. So that is another option. I try to put as much stuff of mine in VMs as I can because of the snapshot capabilities. And, it makes it real convenient to go back and restore something if I screw up a configuration, which I have done. I have borked my fair share of working systems. So, but yeah, that's pretty interesting there. So that covers everything that I had on my list. And we're running ahead of schedule. So maybe I'll wrap this up at 12:30 and have a little extra time this afternoon to get some laundry caught up. And maybe I'll download TrueNAS Scale Beta and install that on a box this afternoon. So let's see. Let's see. I know I could use standard Linux for that. Yes. So worth mentioning is that Proxmox is built on top of Debian Linux. So it's It is a standard Linux. It's got a tweaked kernel to give the extra performance to the VMs and containers that run on top of it. And of course, the web interface is running by default. Now, you could also put Cockpit on Proxmox. You just have to make sure, and I don't believe it interfere because Proxmox by default runs on port 8006, and Cockpit by default runs on port 9090. Seems you installed a kernel update. Please consider rebooting to make that active. Okay, we'll reboot after the live stream. But yeah, things are progressing. So I'm looking forward to cooler weather and having a little more energy to put into some projects, which will make for some good videos. Did laundry yesterday. I came home from work yesterday because starting the week after Labor Day until the weekend of Memorial Day, the library is open every Saturday. So I got stuck working the first Saturday we were open. We had a very small number of people in the building, which was okay. But I came home and had lunch, a late lunch, and then ended up crashing for a while because I had been up since 5:30 yesterday morning, and I was tired. And then I got back up, so I think I crashed from about 5 to 8, and then I was up 8 to 2 or 2:30 this morning. And then I got up this morning and prepped for the live stream. I actually started my outline yesterday, but I think I'm gonna keep the same general outline. The intro, some notable news of the period leading up to the live stream. Next time it'll be 2 weeks worth of news. Any announcements that I need to make, launch into a segment 1 of Linux coverage, do a little bit of coverage of Windows or Mac, or a combination thereof, and then a second Linux segment, which is likely going to be where I will keep any demos that happen. I will probably not be doing putting chat messages on screen while I'm doing demos or anything, but then after the second Linux segment, I will catch up on Q&A from chat, and then launch into any wrap up and talk about upcoming videos and things of that nature. So let's see, it's showing there are 2 people watching, so hello to my other viewer that is not currently participating in chat. Thank you for coming out and at least watching. So I guess at this point, David, is your live stream tonight? Because you didn't have one last week, I believe. Hello, Sheen. Welcome. You're coming in just as I'm starting to go through the wrap-up process. But I'm glad to have you here. Hope you've found some value in the content on the channel. Tonight at 8:30. Okay, so I'll have you on my cell phone while I'm watching Walking Dead at 9. But that's okay. I can multitask in that way. I'm sort of a Walking Dead junkie, and I don't like to miss it if I can avoid it. All right, so to continue down the wrap up, and I'll field any questions or comments people have in the next few minutes. But I am looking to wrap this up around 12:30 today, and maybe that's the other trick to this is keeping this live stream to 90 minutes or as close to that as possible. But my recorded video that's coming up, and it'll likely be Thursday of this week, because that's when YouTube has told me is one of the best times for me to release videos. So that will be part 2 of Colibri, which is the learning management system that's sort of a wrapper around things like Khan Academy and other different freely available learning resources. So I will be probably recording that this afternoon and doing some initial editing today for release on Thursday. And depending on how crazy things are at my day job, you may or may not get an additional video next week, since there's not going to be a live stream. So I may do like not tomorrow Monday, but a week from Monday. I might do a Monday video and then the normal Thursday video. I'm not 100% sure on that yet, but I'm hoping that maybe in the weeks that I'm not doing a live stream, I can get at least one additional video published. So that, I think, is the end of what I had for today. I appreciate everybody that's come out and everybody that's watching or will be watching this in the future. Hopefully there will be a few people to watch this in the future. I guess I can take that off screen for the moment. Let's see. Sheen would be happy to see some real world use case by Proxmox, like a small office setup in the future. Real world cases for Proxmox would be basically the same as what you would use a VMware ESX or ESXi for. So in a lot of small and medium businesses, well, I guess mostly moving into medium businesses, you would have a lot of them use ESXi on their server, and then they'll run Windows Server on top of that for Active Directory. They'll run any other applications and things, potentially in separate versions of Windows Server. My focus on this channel is mostly like 80-85% Linux based and open source. So I try to stay away from Windows stuff. But if I were implementing this in a more real scenario, I would potentially run Zenshell Linux, which would provide Active Directory, DNS, potentially mail, and other things. So I'll throw my screen back up one more time. So Zenshal is a Linux-based alternative to Windows Server, and they're on version 7.0, which I have done a video on, I believe. I've got over 300 videos. It's hard to keep track of them sometimes. So, no, that's not. Let's see. There we go. So, for Zenshal, talked about that in a live stream 3 months ago, so that would have been after the
You and your team need organized timesheets. With Connect Team, it's quick, fast, and simple.
that would have been after the 7.0 release. I'll throw that link in chat. And I'll stop this from playing. So that was set up in VirtualBox. I've since moved 90+% of my virtualization to Proxmox. So I'm probably overdue for doing a video on Zenshal and running it in Proxmox. So that is a good topic for a future video in the not too distant future. I'm also going to be dusting off and redoing my videos on Fog Server, which is an alternative to a product like Norton Ghost, if you've heard of that one. Let's see, lab scenarios using GNS3. So I always found GNS3 to be interesting, but I never successfully got it to run on my own equipment here. So I may take another look at that and see if I can get it up and going. Right now, I can't guarantee that one. Never heard of Zenshal before today. We'll try to play with it in my home lab. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. That's kind of what I'm here for. I like to spread the word and get more people thinking about alternatives to solutions that just drain your bank account. And Zenshal is one that would accomplish that. So I've been pretty impressed. I've used Zenshal on and off for probably going on 5 years. Maybe it's a little bit longer than that. But it's pretty impressive what it can do. You know, there are scenarios where you could use this in an environment like a church, a community center, I'm sure there are others pretty easily without a lot of issue. There is software out there, however, that is dependent on Active Directory as it's implemented by Microsoft and would not be a good solution paired with Zenshal. Things like your different enterprise level antivirus would probably not work real well with Zenshal because Zenshal's not running on Windows, and so that's going to be an area of contention. So I hope that gives you a little bit of background information, and I've got some older Zenshal videos on my channel as well that go through a full install. So that might be something to look at. The install process hasn't changed considerably. They've added some new features. They've added, for instance, newer versions of Samba for Active Directory and file sharing and things of that nature. But their web-based interface has stayed pretty consistent across the past few versions. So, just entering the Linux world. Well, like I said, I've got over 300 videos on my channel. Take a look. You should find some good material there that will help you get started as you work through this. I've been working with Linux since 1997, so I've been around a little while. I still don't claim to know everything there is to know about Linux because it's a big amount of information to know, and I don't know how many people can actually know everything there is to know about Linux. I would imagine those people are few and far between, and it would probably help if you had an eidetic memory and could read stuff once and recall it instantly. So I am not one of those people. Unfortunately, I have to do things the hard way and prepare notes and have reference material to refer to and more books than I care to admit. But yeah. Let's see. Do you still have the link to that utility that tests a system for Windows 11? I can get that for you. Why not Win 11? This guy right here will get you there because you download it off their GitHub page. So yes, I'm a little battle scarred, but I don't have PTSD inducing feelings about Linux like I do with some versions of Windows. So that's a whole other story, conversation for a different day. So no problem, David. I'm glad to put these resources out there. And it looks like they just updated it 12 days ago. So with the release less than a month away, Microsoft has to be getting pretty far into their release candidate stage on Windows 11, if they're not already at a release candidate at the moment. Let's see. Just got a TPM 1.2 chip and see back orders available for 2.0. Yep. So none of my systems are new enough to realistically run the final specification for Windows 11. So I think the newest system I've got is an Optiplex 7040. I'm talking for PC systems. It's an Optiplex 7040, and that's got, I believe, a 6th generation chip in it, if I remember correctly. And yeah, that's from 2015. I believe that's a 6th generation. Yes. Generation 6. So, but for what I do, for running Linux, it's a pretty slick little system. It's small. It doesn't use a lot of power. It's pretty slick. So, and I got it for a little bit of nothing, which is even better. So, you know, I will probably pick up in the next 6 months a used system that's, I don't know if it's 70, 60. Would have an 8th gen processor in it or not. It's got an 8th gen. So when these become available at decent prices on Fleabay, I may very well pick one up. And really, I could do a 3060 because those will be cheaper. So for their full-size tower, I'd be looking at $276. And that's one of the few that has free shipping. So yeah, I mean, it's this is Optiplex 3060, small form factor, i5 8500, 8 gigs of RAM, and it's got a hard drive which I'd replace with a solid state or an NVMe drive, but that's all right. $250 for 3060. So they're reasonable, I suppose. I might get something, you know, with Windows 10 pre-installed, upgrade it to 11 when it comes out, and just have one system running 11 and keep my 7010 that I've got running 10 for a while. And then if this takes over for the Windows machine, then the 7010 will get repurposed with some variety of Linux. I'm just going to have to come up with a little bit different way to manage all these systems I've got. I want to get either a computer with a couple of extra hard drives or a NAS, a pre-built NAS box to put out at my sister's place, so that I can do remote backups without having to pay monthly fees for things. And then couple that with something like zero tier, which would make a great way to, not have to directly poke holes in their firewall and open ports, but again acts more as a VPN of sorts, and that would do what I need it to do. So yeah, maybe I will think about bidding on one of these and see where it goes. The micro, I'm not sure I want the micro sized one, but either the probably the small form factor. So I'd probably be looking at the 250 to 280 range with shipping. But that's to keep the channel moving forward. I'll need to invest in a Windows 11 machine, and I'm not going to go out and buy a new machine just for Windows 11. So, and then I'm going to start going through, because I've got some machines that are not quite as capable as I'd like them, and I will probably start donating those to low-income folks that need a machine and can't afford to buy a machine, of any specification. I've also got a line with a lady that owns a nonprofit for persons re-entering after serving a prison sentence, and for those that are allowed to have their own computer, then I could set something up with Linux and go from there, and let them add it. So that seems kind of interesting. Got some of these beefy boys from eBay as well. Yeah. So Precision T5600 16 core, 2.6 gigahertz, 128 gigs RAM, brand new, 256 gig solid state with Windows 10. Nice. I'm not sure on the $600 US. That's not bad either. For Windows machines, I normally buy used, save myself a little money. As you probably noticed, I am running this off from a Mac. I just recently purchased one of the new Mac Minis with the M1 chip, and I updated it, or upgraded at purchase to the 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage, and the 10 gigabit Ethernet option. So I'm itching to get I'm itching to get a few things, now that I've got a machine capable of 10 gigabit Ethernet. I need to get some new networking equipment, and have at least one other machine that's capable of taking a 10 gig card, and potentially a NAS that can do at least 2.5 or 5 gig, and be able to push files around a little bit faster. T5600. Well, let's see. T5600. Oh, it has 2 E5 2609s. 2.4 gigahertz, 4 cores, 16 gigs RAM. Yeah, not bad. That's for 590, T5600, 16 core, 2.6 gigahertz, 2670, 128 gig of RAM, brand new, 512 gig solid state for 590. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at these. I don't want to I don't want to overspend while I'm still paying on the paying off the last half of the Mac Mini, but I should have a Windows 11 machine just because I will be supporting those that do have them. So don't use it for Windows, man. For those who are looking for home labs, those specs above are pretty. Oh yeah, absolutely. For home labs, those are amazing. You could slap Proxmox on one of those and be golden for years to come. Maybe adding some additional storage, but there are other ways you can accomplish that with Proxmox. You can use network attached storage. Take a little bit of a performance hit by not having it direct, but with the speed and the RAM available on one of those, it would be great. And then you could run Windows 11 as a virtual machine inside it, because that Precision box would have room to take a graphics card that you could pass through to a VM without an issue. So, theoretically anyways. I have not done VM pass-through, but that is something I do want to experiment with at some point in the future if graphics cards ever come down in price. But I saw an article yesterday, I believe. NVIDIA was talking about their 4000 series cards that I guess are coming next year. And one of them was $3,000. So that's way out of price that I want to be into a graphics card for. So hopefully some used stuff will hit the market at more reasonable rates than that, and I can do some upgrading for Proxmox, because this old server I've got, it's power hungry, and for what it actually is, that's something I'm looking at replacing in the next year's time. Because something like this Precision would double the RAM and have like 8 times the it would double the processor cores, and it would have 8 times the amount of RAM I've got in this server. So let's see, that's interesting. I've never successfully done VM pass-through in Hyper-V, KVM, ESXi, and VirtualBox. So there are so I've done pass-through in VirtualBox of non-GPU cards. I don't have a machine with a beefy enough GPU to do pass-through successfully, or a machine that has multiple graphics cards to do pass-through of a whole card. So There are some walkthroughs for Proxmox that go through the steps of doing pass-through. Here's one for Windows 10. That's from 2019. This is from September 1st of 2021. And this is right from the Proxmox people. I'm sure there are videos on YouTube. I have not made one yet. Virtual gaming with Proxmox RTX 2060 GPU pass-through in Windows 10. Gaming with Proxmox. Techno Tim, I would actually trust that one. I'm going to mute this tab. And this one, let the ad run with no sound, and then I'll get you this link. So that might be a video worth watching for you. Techno Tim is pretty good. I've watched several of his videos. I'm pretty sure I'm subscribed to his channel. Yes, I am. So his stuff is solid. I don't hesitate to recommend his stuff. And then the other guy that I would recommend taking a look at is going to be Craft Computing. And his material is solid as well. And he's got 3 GTX cards in that box on his desk. And that's from earlier this year. So that might be a good reference as well. So, all right. On that note, I should probably wrap this up. The next live stream will be 2 weeks from today, on the 26th of September at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And I will have a similar scheduled, outlined run through for that day. And hopefully everybody will come back and ask some good questions and give me a little bit of time to recharge and be ready to go for this. I will get that video, that live stream announced here in the next few days. And that way the link is already on YouTube, and maybe that with a 2-week lead time, maybe that will get more people seeing the link and have them come and view this. So thank you everybody for coming out. It looks like we're at 4 in the watching live. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to like and subscribe. I do have, as I mentioned earlier, I do have a video planned for Thursday of this week that'll come out. It'll probably launch at 9 a.m. Eastern. I may do it at 8 a.m. Eastern, depending on how things go during the week. And if I'm able to do so, I may do that as a premiere and hang out and chat while the video is playing. So, again, thank you all for coming out. stay safe. Do what you need to do to keep from getting the plague. I don't like mentioning it by its actual name. Thanks. Hopefully I catch your stream again. Need a guru on my IT career as I want to break through on a higher level. Well, stick around. David, that was in here earlier, also has a channel, PE for Doers, and he has some great information as well. Let me drop his link in here real quick, like. He covers a lot more on the Windows side, the hardware side, and he's worked in security. So definitely. Oh, there you are. Here I am giving you a free mention and showing off your channel on screen, and I thought you were gone. So definitely check out David's channel as well, and again, Techno Tim and Craft Computing both have good stuff, and if you stick around my channel, you may see a few other channels mentioned that I view on a regular basis, and I like to pay it forward and pass along good information to other people. So as I go, I try to give some of those other channels a mention as well. So on that note, thank you, everybody. I appreciate the support. I am over, as of this morning, I'm at 2,671 subscribers. And they may have just bumped one or two during the live stream. Yeah, I'm on the road to 3,000 and onward and upward. So thanks again, everybody, for coming out, and I'll see you in 2 weeks at the next live stream. Have a great day.